Okay, ladies and gentlemen, thank you for joining me as we talk a little bit about traits and inheritance and why maybe you look the way you do, and why your parents look the way you do, and why you may or may not resemble them. So, the first part of kind of traits and inheritance is a gene. What exactly is a gene? Well, a gene is a set of instructions for an inherited trait. So, you get two sets of instructions. You get a set from your father and a set from your mother. And depending on the different alleles, depending on the different alleles, depends on whether you have maybe your father's eyes or your mother's eyes. Maybe you have your father's dark hair, but your mother's height, vice versa. So, the gene is the set of instructions, kind of the whole set for the whole body. And the allele is within the gene of just for each certain characteristic. So here's a good example. This is an example of pea plants, and if you know anything about genetics, you know that pea plants are a big focus, and that's because Gregor Mendel, the father of modern genetics, used pea plants to kind of find all these different traits and to why the genes worked the way they did. So, this whole thing is the gene. And here is the other set. So, we have one set up here, one set down here. And, now, there's not necessarily mothers and fathers in plants, but we'll just, for argument's sake, the top we'll say is the father's genes, and the bottom is the mother's genes. Now, the whole thing is the gene. Now, within the gene are these little bands. These are the alleles. And these alleles decide which characteristic is what. Now, example they're using here is for the flower color. This allele is for purple flowers on the father, and the mother's allele is white. So, when they're different colors like that, what it comes down to is which trait is dominant and which one is recessive. And in the pea plants, the purple flower is dominant, so the offspring of these two parents will have purple flowers. Or, I shouldn't say parents. The offspring that are using these two genes are having purple flowers. Now, that's not saying that every single offspring will have purple flowers of these two parents, and that's what we're going to get into. So, phenotype and genotype. Don't worry about reading. Phenotype and genotype. Phenotype is the actual characteristics. So, hair color, eye color, size of the nose, in plants, the height, the seed color, the seed appearance. The genotype is the actual genetic makeup. So why things look like they do, kind of the behind the scenes work, the instructions behind the actual characteristic. So here, over here, this column has the phenotype. We can clearly see for these flowers, purple, 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 and white, just like the flowers. On the other column here, we have the genotype. We have two capital P's, a capital P and a lowercase p, a capital P and a lowercase p, and two lowercase p's. That's kind of the behind the scenes, and what these P's stand for is P stands for, the capital P stands for purple, the lowercase p stands for white, and the letters are kind of just, they're used as symbols, so you could use any letter in that case. They're just using P's because we're talking about A, we're talking about pea plants, and we're using the color purple, so that kind of just keeps it easy. And you'll see here homozygous and heterozygous. We're going to talk about that next. Homozygous is an individual with either 2 dominant or 2 recessive alleles. An individual with dominant and recessive is heterozygous. Now I'm going to go back to this last slide here to see this one here, 2 capital P's, is homozygous. See, the alleles are the same. This means it has 2 purple alleles. So if we even went back 1 or back 2, here we said about the alleles, in that plant both of these would be purple. In this case here, this would be 1 purple allele and 1 white allele, and that is heterozygous because they are different. And actually, this here would be a heterozygous plant because it has 1 purple allele and 1 white allele. And because purple is dominant, you can see here the flower is actually purple. Not light purple, not a mix of purple and white, it is purple. The purple, it's not, there's no in between. And this here is the same as the one above, and actually the one down here at the bottom has 2 lowercase p's, which means it has 2 white alleles, and that is the only way you can have a white flower, is when you have 2 white alleles. So because that is recessive. So you need 2 recessive alleles to show the recessive characteristic. How we get to these are by using punnett squares. This here is a punnett square. We're going to move forward a little bit here to actually using a punnett square. Here you can see how, okay, like I said, these letters are just used as symbols, so you can really use any letters, but typically the capital, the capital is used as the dominant gene and the lowercase is used as the recessive gene. And I'm going to show you really quickly how these work. So let's say capital G stands for green eyes and lowercase g stands for blue eyes. So what you do is you bring one G. Let's start at the top. We'll start at this one up here, this G. You're going to bring one down into each box. And we're going to do the same thing over here. We're going to bring this down into each box. Now, we're going to move across. We're going to use this one here and bring it across into each box. Now, you've noticed these are all capital G's. However, we have a lowercase g here, and this lowercase g is, we're going to bring this across. So, we have 2 capital G's here, we have 2 capital G's here, a capital G and a lowercase g, a capital G and a lowercase g. In this case, all offspring, there is a 100% chance that all the offspring will have green eyes, because green is the dominant over blue, and anytime there is a dominant and a recessive, the dominant always wins. And in this case up here, there's 2 dominants, so definitely green. So that's just a really quick introduction to traits and inheritance and punnett squares. Hope you learned a little bit of something. Thanks.